Hello, and welcome to the Fire Officer Project podcast, a show where we will discuss and learn together about topics specific to the American Fire Service. Come along as we explore areas such as firehouse traditions and culture, the fire family life, leadership, as well as getting yourself ready to be the company officer. This show is for everyone from the rookie firefighter to newly promoted officers. I'm your host, Mark McCurdy. Now let's get on with the show. Wear your seatbelt. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Fire Officer Project. You can find all the show notes at the bottom. Did I have you there? Did I get you? Probably not. But as straightforward as a title for an episode as it is, wear your seatbelt. Yes, I mean it literally and figuratively, or however you want to phrase it. But I'm also going to go a little bit deeper and see how that fractures off. And just a subject that came up from a exchange I had with a probationary firefighter recently, and it made me think of a few things that kind of tie together on just one simple action of clicking a seatbelt. So I hope this episode finds you well. Episode 24. I've got a few show notes here. It might not be as long as some of the other ones, and maybe that's a good thing, but it's pretty straightforward. I have some ideas, and you're probably going, yeah, I see that, and I hear you, but. So let me just give you some food for thought, and by no means do I think I've done this perfectly. You just, as you get a little further down the road, you see things happen. You have personal experiences where you're like, whew, or personally you got lucky on something that could have been career ending. So that's kind of the topic matter if I give it to you, but let me just jump right in and go for it, what I'm talking about. Now, I'm talking about literally wearing your seatbelt and what happens when we don't, but then also fracturing off and kind of how that is an overall generalization of how we need to take care of ourselves over this long career. So let me explain the setup of where it came from. Just working a regular day, normal stuff, right? And this is how it all starts. It all was just a regular day. Just a day. Everything's going well. Everything's normal thing. Structure fire tones go out, which happens thousands of times a day, I'm sure, across this country and all over the world. However that setup is, place yourself in your experience of what a structure assignment, what happens. Everybody loses their damn mind, sort of, or maybe they're controlled and it's controlled chaos. I don't mean it sarcastically, but you know what I mean. So everybody's getting to the rig, getting their gear on, doing all the things. Head out the door, and en route to the call, we're driving normal speeds, nothing outrageous, just normal. Getting to the call with purpose. And I can hear the boot firefighter clanking around in the back and banging around, and, they want to do well, and it doesn't matter because I've done the same thing. This exact story that I'm telling you, I've done too, so I'm not putting it on this new person, they're screwed up, blah, blah, blah. No. I'm just saying in this particular situation, this is what it was. And then this story developed in my mind and a conversation that we had on the rig on the way back. Now, granted, the notes said kitchen fire or oven fire, something that wasn't alarming. And we were going to probably be third or fourth in. Does that mean anything? No. So I hope in this episode, let me sidebar for a second. I'm probably going to say some things that a few of you are going to go, what a jerk, this guy's a clown, and you punch the ceiling in your car, and you're like, whatever. That's the fire service. I try to stay pretty neutral and straight down the line, but, whatever. If I tell my wife all the time, she's a softball coach, if half the parents aren't pissed at you, then you're probably not doing your job. So whatever, not everybody likes your opinion or decision, but you might get one or two things that you're going, all right, I agree reluctantly. Anyways, back to the story. Doesn't matter what it says in the notes, right? Because that's not a guarantee of what is truly going on. And we all have those stories where it said this, and then you get there and it's a boomer. So I know that. So I'm not saying we downplayed it by any means, because I would say the same thing I'm going to say here is going to be the same way if you pull out of the station and you got a good column of smoke coming up. Anyways, I can hear the probationary firefighter banging around in the back, and you know exactly what is going on. They're trying to be ready, to be dialed, heart rate's at 150. Not only are they trying to make sure they function, and we all do this, right? We're trying to make sure we function properly, all the training, all the knowledge, I got to impress everybody. I want to be all that stuff, right? You know exactly what I'm saying. But what good does it do if we get in an accident? If something happens where, and this has happened, the freaking door latch or didn't latch all the way or something, and you go tumbling out the rig when you make a right turn or a left turn. That's happened. All right, what's going to happen? Nothing. We're not going to be able to get there to do that, and you could severely screw yourself up, obviously. So you can see the picture in your mind. We're clanking around in the back, trying to get our BA on, trying to do all this. Not only are we going 50 miles an hour across town, weaving in and out of traffic, the whole get up, you get it. So I say something like, hey, do you have your seatbelt on? And you can imagine what the answer is. Of course, I know what they're going to say. No. Okay. I just say, hey, I want your seatbelt on. Now, our rigs, and most likely some rigs like this, some rigs don't even have this option, right? You have clean cab or your BAs are outside in a cabinet, so you really can't do much. But ours are built into the seats as you sit backwards. You have the option in majority of our rigs, if not all, to sit forward, sit backwards. But if you're sitting forward, your back's up against the cab wall. If you're sitting backwards, the BA is built into the seat. It's all secured and everything well, but it has a seatbelt for both seats. And you can sit and have your seatbelt on. And how long really does it take you to put your BA on, especially when you're not even arriving on scene yet? And I get it. Here it comes. Here's where the people are already yelling in their car. But you need to have your mask on and you need to be hooked up so when you step off, you're good to go. I don't 100% agree with that, so you can be mad at me. I'll take the nearly 25 years of on-the-job experience plus years of before that reserve time and things like that to say, and I've worked all over, so I'm not trying to say pound my chest. I'm just saying there's a time and place for it, but for the most part, I don't step off the rig with my mask on, and especially as a company officer, that's not happening. But even as a firefighter, there were situations, of course, sure, rescue or things like that where you're going, okay, immediate, we got something going, boom, boom. That's a different situation. But the black and white of every time you step, no, I don't agree. But that's not the point here. The point is arriving intact because you know that person in the back doesn't have their seatbelt on. A lot of us will do this too, and I've done it myself. Sit backwards with the BA in that thing, put your BA on, sit forward. Now you definitely don't have your seatbelt on. Now you got this bottle pressed up against the cab, waiting so you can step out, so you can see as we arrive, looking forward, what's going on. I'll tell you when there's a time and place that I feel that that's acceptable. But until we're en route there, and you know that person doesn't have their seatbelt on, what's going to happen? What potentially could happen? And what's the recourse going to be when you're, oh yeah, no, they didn't have their seatbelt on. And, okay, that's kind of the setup, right? So talk to the firefighter. Hey, I want you to have your seatbelt on. I know I've told you this. I want you to have your seatbelt on, and here's why. I don't want you killed. I don't want you mangled. I don't want you maimed. I don't want you to be taken off this job because of something that you could have avoided. Because I guarantee it's written somewhere in policy in your department that says you will have your seatbelt on in a moving vehicle at all times. Guarantee it. What's your recourse going to be? Well, Chief, it was a fire. Okay. You know how many fires you're going to go on in 30 years, 20 years, 25, whatever you're going to do, 40 years? How many you're going to go on? And how many times are we rolling the dice by not doing that? Let alone, look how many times we have engine on truck crime, right? TCing in intersections or whatever the rig is. TCing in intersections. You can watch all day on Instagram. Rigs crashing into each other, let alone civilians. Is it happening more? I don't know. That's not the topic for here. I think we're just see it more because of social media. But that's not what I'm talking about. So talk to the firefighter saying, hey, I want your seatbelt on at all times. Right? I guess this is where you talk about communication. Because obviously I didn't communicate it right based on the conversation I had an hour after this incident. Here was the in-cab. Hey, I want you to have your seatbelt on at all times. As we come, and you're listening to the radio, as we come around the corner or a block out, or the size up says this, or even if we're first in, you know when it's a working thing from a working incident from a distance, correct? Smoke, whatever. It's pretty obvious. We've all seen it. A block out where you're slowing down and you're working through a neighborhood or working through a commercial area or whatever the situation might be. Okay, I get it. Get your BA on, kick off that seatbelt, get ready to go to work. I agree 100%. That's what you should do. Reduce the risk because now we're in the neighborhood, slowing down, coming through, trying to slow down, pay attention, bring in water, whatever it might be, where you have that time to finally, okay, do this, do that. I'll even go as far as on those built-in seats where you have the BA that comes out, you're going to tell me you can't, somebody hits the maxi brakes, you take off your seatbelt, you put your arms through and step out, that 5 seconds or 7 seconds it's going to take, you can't do that? Well, then you got a bigger problem. But I'll give you the fact of, let's back it up to the original piece where I said we come around the corner. That's kind of my SOP, what I tell people. I'm comfortable and worth the risk of, as we're slowing down or we're getting close or we're a block out or that whole situation of popping your seatbelt off, getting your BA ready and get ready to go to work. 100%. I'm not comfortable with going across town at 50 miles an hour or whatever it might be, even 35. It doesn't matter. I just use that number the whole way to an incident going, it could be something. I'm going to risk my life or risk my career for this. No, I don't agree with it. And you guys can be mad and half of you can be pissed. And some of you can probably, like I said, screaming at the radio or turned it off already or punching the ceiling in your car. Okay, fine. I guarantee there's some of the instances that you have or an example. Sure, cool. You know that that's probably the right thing because then I'll explain a little bit later why. But what was startling to me was, one, my communication skills I got to continue to work on is an hour later, we're getting dressed, cleaned up for the day, get ready to go handle them before lunch stuff. And this probationary fire, sir. And he gets my attention from down the hallway of the dorm area and literally comes up to me and asks, do you want me to wear my seatbelt at all times, going to medical aids or just fires only? And I seriously had to look at him. You can imagine what was going through my head. Okay. Obviously, I didn't communicate the whole ride back my intention of explaining what I'm going to explain in this episode to him. I didn't explain it well enough, I guess, to be literal to say at all times. I could have sworn I did because why would I not? But obviously, the message didn't go down and back. So, yes. If we're going to the grocery store, if we're going to a pub ed, fire prevention, medical aid structure, yes. I guess you weren't listening to the part where I said one little mistake, one little action like that can end your career. Oh, okay. Now, do people listen to me? I don't know. But when I'm working to them with that time, that's my goal. That should be your goal as a company officer, right? Because we always say, feed them, pay them, send them home safe. That's your goal as a company officer. Cool. You pay them, right on. It's not your money anyway. You're probably just putting them on duty. So how hard is that? Cool. You put them on duty. You fed them. Yeah, well, because you're hungry too. So you're going to, by default, get them food. Granted, this is all literal, and I'm being a smart ass about it. But keeping them safe, probably the hardest thing you can do. Can you keep them safe at all times? Absolutely not. Is this job dangerous? 100%. Can you control everything even if you did everything right and something's still going to happen? We're still going to get hurt or killed doing everything right. You bet your ass. So, which one are you worth or willing to roll the dice on continuously? Put that in the back of your mind for a second. And I know this sounds straightforward and you're going, okay, but how many times do we do this? And guess what? I break the damn rule too. So I'm almost yelling at myself here a little bit. Okay, so that was the setup. And I was going, gosh, you got to be kidding me right now. This is a kid. I go, hey, do you choose on your own vehicle when you leave here tomorrow morning? Do you choose when you put your seatbelt on, depending on if you're going to home, the gym, grocery store, Target, Walmart, whatever the hell it might be? Do you choose like when you put your seatbelt on? And this kid kind of looked at me and I go, okay, you got it now? Yeah. Now he's leaving and going to his next spot on probation, and he may say I'm a dick and whatever and doesn't want to listen to me. Cool. Okay. But we try to hammer home why. You can't just say something to people. This whole context of all these episodes I've said or anything you've ever experienced in life, the whole because I said so doesn't work so well. And as a parent, if you're a parent, sometimes that works, right? Sometimes it's just do it. And you explain to your kid later or whatever. Same thing in the fire service. And I'll tell them sometimes, yes, I want your opinion. Please tell me this. If you see something that's dangerous, tell me. And I want to know. I don't care if you tell me 3 or 4 times. Just make sure I got the message. Great. And there's other times where you say, guess what? This isn't a democracy. It's a dictatorship right now. Do this. I'll explain later in those instances where you really don't have time. Other times, we're in an operation where I can tell them, here's what we're doing, why we're doing it, how it should look when we're done. Boom. 100%. Everybody likes that. But let me get back on track here. Okay. So I try to explain this to the kid. And then you go deeper. Hey, man, how hard was it for you to get this job? How hard? Now, I know this is a whole nother topic, and I'm not going to bring it up here, but it took me 6 years. And that's going to a private fire academy, going to paramedic school, fire science, explore, reserve, testing 60 different places. Maybe I'm just a clown and couldn't get hired. I just got lucky one day. But it seems a little different on the hiring procedures, and that's not what I'm talking about here. But when we in Southern California are giving away signing bonuses to come to a fire department, I'm pretty sure I'm on point on this one. It's a little easier to get hired than it was. I got nearly 25 years on, so do the math. I got hired in 2000. But if it took me 6 years, mid-90s. Mid-90s, Southern California. Depending on what you got going on, taking as many tests as I could. Cool. Nowadays, I'm not knocking it. It's still hard to get in. It's still a long process, and I think that's part of the detriment to the fire services. The damn process takes so long that people just get turned off by it. But my point was to this kid was, how long did it take you? How much effort did you put in? This kid put in years in a camps program with us for wildland and other things. This kid has a master's degree, for Christ's sake. So he's not dumb. But you go, hold on a second. How does a guy with a master's degree have to ask me a question about a seatbelt? And then you start realizing why this job is sometimes you can get hired basically 18 in a pulse. Obviously a little more than that, but you know what I'm saying. How much time did you spend? And he tells me all the things. I go, great. You're a good candidate. You're a good kid. Why are you willing to roll the dice and take a risk to get hurt by not wearing a seatbelt? And yes, it does go down the road almost of dirty turnouts, right? Dirty helmet, dirty turnouts. You got to look like, salty, tough. No, man. What's our mentality about that? That's not even this topic. So think about it. Okay. So not only is it hard and time consuming, and it takes a lot to get on this job. Physically, you're working on it constantly, right? Physically, you're trying to stay strong enough to do the job, do the task, look the part, do all those things. Then we add on the next layers. You get on the job. Now you got this mental health game that we're talking about. Not game, mental health piece you got to handle. And I'm not talking about just because you see some bad crap and now you're like, oh, I got to pet the dog. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about studying, probation, trying to get through the tower, all those things. That's a mental game, right? Isn't this half this job is a mental game, a mental mind screw of how you get through things. Then we add the layer of trauma. Physically, you're hammered, you're beat up. How many people do we see? Knees, backs, necks, cancer, everything, all this crap. Plus the mental side of it. Now I joke and say, oh, I got to pet the dog and all this other stuff. No, man, you've heard me say it on here. I throw myself on it. Hell, I even told you last episode how I was dealing with panic attacks and seeing a therapist. So I'm not knocking that, believe me. I don't mean it sarcastically. But we're getting inundated by it, right? So why do we see all these layers and complexity of this job? And then we're willing to take the risk to get banged up by not wearing a seatbelt. All right. I'll give you a positive note. What I do see on these younger people that are coming on the job, well, I shouldn't even say younger, just coming on the job, and we had this conversation too. It's a conversation for another day, but it helped me just toenail into this thing because I'm not going to stand here and hammer new people and say they're screwed up because they don't wear their seatbelt. They just need to be educated. Our people that have been on 20 years, 25 years need to be educated too and constantly reminded how you, as the company officer, need to constantly be taking care of them as well. And I don't mean holding their hand, and they're damn adults. I mean looking out for their best interest and, of course, your own. But I'll give you a positive note about people that are entering this career now. I do feel that the newer generation of firefighters, as much as we want to say, oh, they're screwed up because they're a new generation, I do feel they're doing a little bit better job starting off taking better care of themselves. And I'll discuss that near the end. So let me give you some positive to reach for at the end, but that's something I think about. So let's go back to the seatbelt thing. Why do we feel invincible I'll just give you an engine, ladder truck, whatever. Why do we feel invincible when we're inside that thing? How much crap is inside that rig? Think about yours. How much stuff is secured? How much stuff isn't secured? How much we roll that thing over or get hit, sudden deceleration? You can't stop science. And this isn't a science lesson. Some of you may have been involved in one of these accidents and I might be touching a nerve. So I would be interested in hearing your story. If you would like to share, you can always get a hold of me on all these platforms. You know how to do it. But I guarantee, I'm not going to go be as bold and think that there's so many people that listen to me that somebody's been in an accident, but I was in an accident on my internship during paramedic school in an ambulance in the back with a patient, and we got T-boned on the side and almost rolled over. It went up on two wheels on the side. And in an ambulance, you don't see that coming because there's no windows on the side of this ambulance that we had at the time. It was one of those Ford vans, the panel van type things. Before these big box ambulances those box ambulances around, but this one just happened to not be one of those. So just that van type ambulance that gets whacked on the side, goes up on two wheels, and comes back down. But I had my seat. Oh, wait, no, I didn't. And I know. I was a paramedic for 14 years. I know. And this isn't a, hey, look at me, what the years thing. I'm trying to tell you I'm trying to just put in context about rolling the dice and what we do. What I'm saying is, in an accident there, patient has somewhat seatbelts on the gurney, right? And then do we have any? No, because we're starting IVs, we're moving around. We roll the dice all the time in the ambulance. So I can take all those years, it doesn't matter how many times, in the back of saying we got lucky because I never had a seatbelt on. So how can I stand here or sit this or listen to this or speak about this and say, put your seatbelt on? Because farther down the road, and I'm going to tell you why I think that you had to do this. Now, can I say, hey, is it practical to put a seatbelt on in an ambulance and try to tend to a patient? Nope. Especially a trauma, things like that. But I'm not giving you an answer on that one. I'm just talking about fire service stuff here, which obviously EMS is part of it for us. But for this portion, where we just constantly feel like because we're in big red or whatever it might be, that we're invincible, that we just kind of go, I'm good, especially going to fires or something. How about if I just change your mind just a tiny bit? Hell, our seatbelts are red on our engine. Do you think it's because it's to match the engine? Or do you think it's so people can see if you have your seatbelt on from a distance? I don't know. I don't know why they're red. Why are they red? But it's pretty evident when we have them on or don't have them on when you're driving. So, anyways, all right. So, do I always have mine on when we pull out? No, because I'm still working on zipping up my jacket and everything. But by the time we get going, within that 15 seconds out the door and adjusting the radios and things, it's going to get on. I'm going to have it on. I don't feel like going through the windshield at this time in my career. I don't feel like smacking into the front of the rig or hit, sudden deceleration with the computer or MDC deciding to stop me like a chalk block. Nah, I'm good. Easy, right? Because I'm just sitting there. I got to step out and get my BA anyway, so I don't have the temptation to not wear it because it's not in my seat. And I know some other rigs might be built differently, but all right. So, like I said, some people are probably already pissed at me and maybe have turned this off because they don't agree with me. But every time we roll out the door, it's life or death, right? Do we look at it that way? Like every time we go somewhere, it's life or death. I mean, maybe not for us. Maybe it's for the calls we're responding to. Maybe it's the risks that we're willing to put ourselves in. This is a dangerous job. You risk your life. You do. Why do it by not wearing a seatbelt? By not wearing proper PPE? Increasing the chances that snake eyes one day is going to roll up on you. And we said earlier, you can't control everything. You know, you all of us have a story of somebody who was doing it right and still got injured or killed. It happens. I don't have an answer why. None of us do. And if you do, it's pretty amazing. I'd like to have a conversation with you. But I don't know. There's no answer for that, right? But we can control certain things. Here's a good one. How about automatic seatbelt sensors? Most of the modern rigs have them, right? If not all of them, or we've had them for quite a while. What do we do with those? Do we try to manipulate them? Disable them? Cut the wires? Pull out the thing that makes a sound? What do we do? You know, you've probably done it yourself. Or you've been part of it, or nobody's corrected it. You know, so we're creative, right? We're firefighters. We're creative. We'll find a way to either screw things up or work around them. All right, it's morning time. Still got to have my coffee. So you can laugh and chuckle about that, or you've had that experience with what do we do with automatic seatbelt sensors or all the things that we're supposed to do that's built in to keep us safe. We try to find a way around it, and we try to justify it by saying we need to be able to get out of the rig quick, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. I agree. But I don't think it's worth the risk of increasing your chances of getting hurt or killed on the way to an incident. To a degree, I've already talked about it. All right. How many times have you gotten lucky, air quotes, lucky with my fingers here, that you haven't been injured or killed? Think about it. You probably have an incident where you're like, ooh, I got lucky. Now, whether it was something as easy as that could have got in my eye, you slipped and fell here. No, that's a bad example. Slip and fell, whatever. Something in your eye, not wearing a seatbelt, not having proper PPE on that you knew was right or was provided to you, and you decided, I'm willing to take the risk, and you got bit. We all have that story, right? Hell, I just did it a couple weeks ago. And here's the incident. TC with fire. TC trap with fire. So we get an engine, ladder truck, squad, all the stuff. The response matrix doesn't matter. The fact is, it's legit. Whatever this guy was doing, slammed into a tree, vehicle wrapped around the tree on fire. Person is, we didn't know initially as we're pulling up and sizing up, outside of the vehicle because the sheriffs or the police department got up there as we were pulling up and pulled this guy out a few seconds before we're rolling up, and I can see that. It's the middle of the night, 2 or 3 in the morning. And get out, give a little direction to my firefighter before, seatbelt's on, pop it off, tell the fireman, okay, pull a line, do this, all the things that, like, they don't need me to tell them that, right? But it's to make sure we're on the same page. This is what we want. Okay, I'm going to go look to see if there's another victim in that vicinity. Turn out it's on, radio on, helmet on, eye protection, no. BA on, not yet. It's taking that calculated risk because this is an immediate issue. When deputies are yelling and saying, hey, we got a guy over here, they pulled away who's burnt to hell but still alive. And you don't have the time to ask a person, you're kind of looking there. Anyways, the point is, as soon as I walked up to just kind of take a quick sweep around the area and see if we had another victim, something, whether it was a tire or airbag or whatever the hell it might have been, blows up or releases right as I'm 3 feet from the car, enough to where my initial reaction was to turn my head and freeze, and I could feel the shockwave go through my body. And then stand there for a second and go, oh, damn it, that was close. Okay, Can you fix that? Maybe that could have been like, hey, if the survivability profile, if we're going to use terms, minimal. If minimal actually doesn't exist, actually the car was so well involved. If somebody was actually legit trapped in there, and they would have been. There's no way it would have got to them. They would have been done. The calculated risk of looking around to see if somebody's on the other side of that vehicle, on the other side of the tree, in that vicinity. Okay, slight calculated risk, and then that happens. That's still going to be on me. Because people are going to say, well, you didn't create that incident. You should have been safer. Should have had a BA on. Should have had a mask. I know. So that's another piece that kind of made me want to write this episode down. So what did I do? Well, we deal a lot with brush fires in the vicinity I work in, Southern California, all these departments. It doesn't matter what department I work for. If you're in Southern California or even in your area, you deal with brush, grass, whatever it might be. And I always have eye protection on. Doesn't matter if it's daytime, because if it's daytime, probably sunglasses. Now, are they OSHA-approved sunglasses that wrap around? No, of course not. They're just sunglasses. And then at night, if it's dark, I have a little chest harness thing that I keep some things on. So when I'm away from the rig on a brush fire for a while, I have my phone and other elements that help me on brush fires and these clear lenses. I'm good about putting those on because you're pushing through bushes and things are flying or cutting, chopping, smoke, whatever. I put those clear ones on because the last thing I need is to slip on something and take a stick to an eye. Something gets flung out by a chainsaw. You get the gist. But on these, so I go, okay, I have a pair of clear lenses I keep in my BA pouch on my turnout jacket. So if we're doing forcible entry or something that doesn't require me to have a BA mask on, overhaul, whatever it might be, I keep those lenses on. But that means I'd have to pull them out. So anyways, my point was I bought another set of clear lenses that sit on the cowling next to me, next to my radios, that if we have an incident similar to that, I throw those on as I step out of the rig. Now, is that the best solution? I don't know. I'm just saying that was dumb, and that could have screwed me up and ended my career 5 years short if something had happened, got in my eye, blinded me, did whatever. That's the point I'm saying, is we got to adjust here and there. Now, granted, you're going, well, what the hell are you talking about this for? I'm just saying I've done the same issues and taken these risks and go, why? Why? Like I said, you probably have those stories too. I got other ones. This isn't story time. I'm just saying consider those things and look at those pieces that have helped and do something about it. A lot of times we go, oh yeah, I should do that. And then you never get to it. But maybe this will help you to remind you of that one item that you feel, oh yeah, I should have done that. I should order this. We should consider this. All right. All right. It's uncomfortable, right? Like you don't want to tell people things that say, number one, slow down. If we're hauling ass to a call, whatever it might be, insert call, and you have that person who likes to be known that they drive fast and that's how they drive, or they drive reckless, or they're beating the crap out of the rig by driving the way they do, and nobody says anything to them, but it's known, why doesn't anybody say anything to them? If they're driving recklessly. Now, if they're driving with due caution and they're doing the right thing and it just seems it's a little too fast for you, okay, then say something to them. Everyone's safe. That's your job. Now, you're not telling them they suck at driving or anything. You're just like, hey, and obviously I wouldn't do this unless you've had this conversation in private or maybe just kind of get their understanding. That's a whole nother atmosphere, a whole nother episode or just life experience of how to talk to somebody in private and try to fix an issue that you see. But that's how you're going to have to say something. It's uncomfortable. I've said it before. How many times that this job, sometimes in that company officer spot, you're going to be uncomfortable because you have to say things that nobody wants to tell another grown adult to do and why. And then when sometimes you shine a different light on it, they accept it. Now, granted, are there other times where they're basically saying, kiss my ass and I'm going to do whatever I want? Yeah, but guess what? Now let me think. You have the ability to say that, okay, that's not the answer. You're not going to be able to say that to me. And you got to work through that process. But, and it can be different. Like in our job, in our department, you can promote from firefighter medic to captain and not be in the promoted engineer, firefighter specialist, we call it, position. And you will always have that where you never held that position, so somebody could hold that over you. I get that. And there are times where I've heard that before. I don't hear it as much anymore. I don't, but I'm sure it happens, or somebody saying it behind your back, sure, whatever. But as the company officer, you have the authority and should be given the respect of that, even if you didn't hold that position. You know what right looks like. You may not have held that position, but I've talked in other episodes where if you never held that rank, then you just need to own that. But at the same time, the people that are working for you or part of your team need to at least give you the respect of the position that you had. Now, if you suck and you're a crappy boss and everything, well, that's on you. I can't help you. Or I can't help you. That's my goal here, is to try to help you not be that person. But you know what I'm saying. Okay, I've said it a few times, but accidents will happen. Doesn't matter how you could follow every rule and accidents will still happen. That's why it's called an accident. But these unavoidable, avoidable ones, or things that we're going, okay, because I'm not even going to talk about backing accidents and all these little things. I'm basically trying to focus on what I'm saying here. The message is minimize the risk that you're willing to take through your whole career in the controllable things. Okay. That's part one. Part two is this. What happens when somebody gets injured? And it just made me think as I was writing this episode out and taking these notes. What happens when somebody does get injured and they're put off work for a while, or it's a career-ending injury? What happens to those people? Let's take the first example. Somebody gets injured. They're going to be off for 2, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it might be. Some traumatic injury. They're going to make it back to the job, but it's not career-ending. What happens to those people? As soon as they are off, and depending on the situation, people surround them and make sure they're taken care of. And I can't paint every picture of what it might look like, but we do a pretty good job of making sure that person gets taken care of. Things start working in the way they need to be and getting the process rolling. Now it's on the person themselves to help, but also as a company officer or their supervisor, you should have some interaction with that and making sure they're getting taken care of. And sometimes I know it's difficult because I'm not saying you love everybody that you work with, and it can be tough where you're like, ugh, but that's here nor there. We don't have an option to, I really like this guy, I don't like this guy, this person's pissed me off in the past. No. You're going to do the right thing. You are going to do the right thing, and you're going to help take care of this person and at least get them in the right direction, get them what they need. We do a good job about that. But what happens when it becomes month 2, 3, even some more time? Are we checking in with those people? Are we making sure they're getting what they need, or is it more out of sight, out of mind? And believe me, everything I write down here and talk about is not because I do a great job at it. A lot of it is my failures or my ability in the past that I've screwed up that I want to be better at. And just literally talking into a microphone and recording it is a message to deliver, but it is a time-stamped permanent reminder and a continuous thing in my brain to do better myself. Okay, so what happens? Do we stay in contact with those people? Technically, by the policy for our department is we're supposed to check in once a week with our supervisor and let them know what's going on. Does that happen all the time? No. Now they'll check in and say, I have another appointment in a month or a couple weeks or whatever. Okay. They kind of gave you that information, so there's a gray area that you can work through. But how about just checking on those people and just saying, hey, how are you? What do you need? How are things going? Because what's time to us? You're going to hear other episodes where I talk about how fast time goes by. I literally had a conversation yesterday with one of our battalion chiefs about how we cannot believe we work together as firefighters. How we cannot believe we're already this far into our career, and how we used to hear all the time from our captains at the time about how fast it went, how quick it goes by. I can't believe it's here. And we're there, if not approaching it. And, we still have some time left on the job, but it's less than 10 years. And it could be less than 5 for this person I was speaking with too. It's just crazy. So check in with those people and making sure that they have what they need, just kind of making sure they're not forgotten. That's the biggest thing. And if you've ever been on that side and you feel like you've been forgotten, you have that experience. Now, I don't want to jinx myself right now, knock on wood. Off for a little bit here and there, but nothing big. No, definitely don't want to jinx myself. Nothing big to where I've felt like that on the opposite end, where we're going, hey, everybody's forgotten about me. So I try to remember what it's like and just send a message here, call a person here, check on them. Am I great at it? No. Like I just said, how a lot of this is just a reminder to myself. But that's one piece. But what is my message really? What am I really saying in this episode? Yet granted, we had the setup for the seatbelt. We talked about and went off the rails a tiny bit about other things and tactics slightly, but what am I really saying? And what did I really say in this conversation to this firefighter in the cab, along with my engineer who was driving, to try to hit home to this kid and to ourselves? The message is, we're replaceable. I don't care if you're a small department or a large department or whatever. We are replaceable. And once you look at it that way and realize, some people will say, oh, I work for this small department. We know everybody by name. We know everybody's personalities. We're good graces with this and that and this person and this. And when you work for a big agency, you're just a number. Yes. And I can tell you from being around both ends of the spectrum, small agency and big, you're right. You're right. All those things. Yeah. We knew everybody at my small agency that I worked for. 3-station department. You bet. I knew everybody's personality and who they were and this and that. And that's great. And then you get into a medium-sized department and you still might have that. And you get a little bit larger and you kind of don't know everything. And you get really big. And you could walk by somebody at Walmart or Target, like I was saying earlier, and not even know they work for the same department that you do. Okay. You're just a number at those type of agencies. I venture to say you're just a number too, if you really boiled it down, on small departments too, because as soon as something happens and they need to replace you because you have a career-ending injury or you retire, right? When we retire, we go, hey, it is what it is. I gave them my time and now they're just going to replace me. But when you get shorted, if I want to say it that way, and it's career-ending, something that happened, whether it was potentially avoidable or it just wasn't, you're replaceable. We are replaceable. You know why? And the hard truth is, the show goes on. It's just the way it is. The fire department and the fire service has been around for a long time, right? It's going to be going on. What we have is a window that we operate in. A window for you to provide a service by doing a good job, keeping traditions alive, creating new traditions, creating new behaviors, and suggesting new things, which is going to lead me into this last piece, and doing the best you can, trying to stay as healthy and not banged up and make it through your time that you are providing, or just this opportunity in life before you can't do it anymore. And then when that time comes, you can hang your turnouts up. You can turn in your badge or whatever it might be. And you can say, I did the best that I could have done and left it better than how I came into it. Whether it's a small little fingerprint that you put on or a memory that you leave behind with people, that is what's going to matter. And so, and I say that, and it's crazy because I'm literally looking, I'll be honest with you, I'm sitting in my office here and I have it set up a little bit and I have a few pictures here and there, and I'm looking at a picture of me and two of my buddies. The first time we went to Washington, D.C., New York, kind of that, just after 9/11, a year after 9/11. And I'm looking at a picture of us standing in front of Rescue 1, Washington, D.C., because we were just visiting and we're kind of doing a trip, right? 1 year after 9/11. going back to DC and then to New York. And I can't believe that is 24 years ago. Just about, right? That's crazy. So I say this with passion in my heart, and I'm looking at this picture, and you kind of realize, and maybe you're there too. Maybe you are just about at the end, and you want to deliver these messages. And I know people are doing this where they're giving messages and they're passing down traditions and they're passing down knowledge all day long in this. And you've heard me in other episodes say how it's okay to love this job. As much as we want to see things on social media that try to, talk smack about or tell people they're nerds because of this, it's okay to be a nerd. Just don't make this your whole life. Your whole everything that you will sacrifice family, marriage, whatever. I'm not even going to say, I'm not faulting anybody by doing that, saying they screwed up their life or marriage. I'm just saying, don't hedge those bets if you can. It's great. It's a great career. It's a great job. It gives you a lot, but you give a lot too. And I'll probably post a picture later on or something. Just in this instance, I can say, here's a most recent experience I've had. I went to the last father-daughter dance with my sixth grader, my youngest daughter. I only have two daughters. I went to the last father-daughter dance coming up on 2 weeks ago with her, right? And when I first went, I had both my kids because they're only 2 years apart. Then you work through it, and the last time you have a father-daughter dance is sixth grade. At least that's how it works for us. I went to the last one just 2 weeks ago or so. That's it. I won't go to another one. But what I can say is I made it to all of them. I made it to all of them every year that they grew up through the sixth grade, both my girls. Now you're like, cool, bro. That's awesome. But if you have kids or if you have a daughter or whatever, or it doesn't have to be this exact environment. How much do we give and miss on this job? A lot. And to be able to say at least I had that where I made it to every one of them, because you can't make every birthday. You're not home every Christmas. You're not home every Thanksgiving, Halloween, whatever it might be, depending on the setup of your department. You're not going to if you make it all, that's awesome. I'm going to say the chances are pretty damn close to zero that you'll do that after a long, extensive career. But there are wins. And there are times where you go, I did make it to that, and that's huge. And then you work through giving back what you can until it's time to hang it up. So why? Why would you want to take the risk to increase your chances of getting maimed, hurt, permanently disabled on something as simple as clicking a seatbelt? That's the message today. That's all. I'm not saying it's perfect. You heard me set it up again. I don't need to review it. Once again, when I always say like, oh, this might be a shorter episode, I'm nearing 50 minutes, because you realize when you start talking about these things that you kind of, obviously I go off on a tangent slightly, but I want it to get out there. So as I finish up, I want to go back to the one thing I said about the new generation and what I feel is what they're doing well. And us guys that have been around, or gals that have been around a minute, can take from and probably are already partaking in somewhat. I feel like this newer generation is doing a better job of taking care of themselves earlier in their career. That's a blanket statement, but I do feel it. I do feel and see it. But I'll give you this. What are my examples? My examples are people prepping their lunch or prepping their meals or eating a certain way or cooking a certain way with this group dinner. Like say, okay, for example, we cook dinner at our station 95% of the time, 90% of the time based on incidents and things. That's the plan. We're always going to cook one meal together at night during the week, weekends, 2, brunch, lunch, dinner. That's the tradition in this house that we're at now, probably for a lot of you. But I know you've worked at places where they don't, right? And maybe it's small house, whatever the situation is. My point is you see a lot more meal prep going on, a lot somewhat healthier meals being made at dinner. There's always been focus on working out, I believe, but it just seems like there's been a slight adjustment recently in things such as ice baths, saunas, deep breathing, all those things that we're just trying to find a better way to live longer. Now, I'm not going to go through all the science, and maybe it's all screwed up and BS, and actually I might find out that it does worse damage. I don't know. But I do see a focus on trying to take care of ourselves. Decon, cleaning turnouts, changing out helmet liners and not having the same one with this toxic crap that's coming in your eyes all the time and all the things. I don't need to give you every example. I just see a little bit better message. Now, do I think it's the new generation miraculously came up with this themselves? No. What I do think is it's the old salts and the old dogs that have had that experience who are now in those positions and those company officers, training academy members, whatever they may be in now, who have seen it, tried and true, have done it, and have seen adjustments in themselves and are passing that message along as well. I don't think it's just a new generation who's like miraculously saying we're better at this than you old salts. And I think it's a combination of both. However it comes about, being the fact of we pay attention more to cleaning the turnouts, doing all those things out of that is better and is going to help us in life. That's a win-win. Now, I do see a slight, if I had to complain, was we do have to remember there is a mission. We are at work. So it can't be, I got to meal prep, I got to make my mushroom coffee, do this, do that, work out, ice bath, sauna, make my meals, do all this, and then the actual reason we're there at that firehouse is getting pushed to the back burner. No, I don't agree with that. So there has to be a balance of give and take of still training, taking care of the apparatus, taking care of the firehouse, the public, obviously all those things. There is the mission. So how do you work through that? Well, I don't know, maybe less time in the chair. You're going to have to. If you want to cover both and be great at your job and give back and do all the things that I was just trying to rah-rah about earlier and increase the way we take care of ourselves by adding things as far as saunas and getting all this crap out of our pores and deconning and doing all this stuff, then we're going to have to give up something because we all only have the same 24 hours. So maybe that is, and I'll date myself because some people weren't even born when this movie came out. Maybe it isn't watching Tombstone for the 100th time at the firehouse or whatever it might be that you're into or this. So now there is a time and place for it. Obviously, I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is we need to time manage a little better to include all of those things. So as I wrap up, are you going to tell your crew to put their seatbelt on? Seatbelt in quotation marks. Obviously, I'm using the seatbelt as a narrative for something of taking care of and paying attention to and using that ability that you have as a company officer or soon to be company officer that you need to help your members protect themselves from themselves sometimes. You've heard me say that before, but where you're passing on that message of, and it's not just a seatbelt, you know what I'm saying? Looking at things and saying, hey, I want you to do this, or this is why I want you to do that because I want you to be around. Okay. I say all this stuff to remind ourselves, you, myself, to take care of ourselves as well. I'm not the perfect example. Hell no, am I at all. And I don't need to blast myself, and you don't need to hear these last few minutes of saying where I screwed up, but on my path here, I'll be 50 in a couple months. All right. Is 50 the new 40 or the new 30, whatever that is? Okay, cool. I don't feel like I'm that 50, going to be 50, but sometimes here and there, but that's like an earned reward of 50 years of being on this planet. But it also has kicked my butt in gear to tighten a few things up that I haven't done great. Consistent with vitamins and hydrating, just water, listening to things, turning off like I said, movies I've seen 100 times, better workouts, diet, blood work, better conversations, trying to create better relationships with people, trying to find ways to sleep better. But at the same time, balancing this career and leave my mark, my fingerprint, whatever it might be, not for my ego, but just because of this opportunity we were given to be lucky to be in this career and leave it better than we found it. But at the same time, knowing that when you leave, you still want to live as long as you can and have those relationships. You can't be a turd to your family for the 30 years and justify it by saying, I needed to work at the busiest places and stroke my ego. And then when you retire, go, I'm here. Everybody, enjoy me. Come on. Granted, that's a big overall crappy example, but you know what I'm saying. So take care of yourself. Wear your damn seatbelt. And you know what I'm saying when I say that. I'd be interested to hear if there's any stories or if you guys have an opinion on this. Complaints, comments, anything. You know how to get a hold of me. Until we talk again, or until I come up with this next few subjects and tighten it all up, stay safe and keep moving forward.